This recording is going to cover the new 2024 connection into Twinmotion. What I have here on my screen is a very basic Revit model. I made it pretty light because I want to add more detailed context inside of Twinmotion. Here with the model, I can go to the View tab, open in Twinmotion. This is the 2023.1.2 Twinmotion for Revit. There is a new preview version out at the moment. What I'm going to do is just go with the standard settings here. If it shows collapse by material, it's important to keep by hierarchy. This just gives you more flexibility when you come to use the data inside of Twinmotion. There's some information on UV mapping, normals. If you just leave it on the main settings here, and it will default the information to this table. So by doing this, this will now create the link directly into Twinmotion. And here we have the raw material from Revit available in Twinmotion. Now, I have Revit open at the same time, and I can turn on auto sync, or I can manually synchronize. So to see this in the sync, I can go here to the windows on this part of the facade. Back here in Revit, I'll just do a quick copy and paste the line to selected levels. So I'll put it up onto level 3. And now back here in Twinmotion, with the auto sync, it's automatically done it. So there's a pretty fast connection between the two tools. And of course, if I go and undo it, syncs straight away. So there is this great connection between the two platforms. Now, by default, this has a little scene graph in here, and I can delete that information out if I don't need it. So I'm going to get rid of the starting base. And there is some background landscape. Now, we can customize this as we go. What's important to note here is the hierarchy is maintained. So all of the content has been grouped and is in a structure which I can navigate around. If I need to find something, I can type it in here, and this will bring up the information that I'm looking for. So that's the data from Revit, the metadata, which you can search through. There are other things you can do in terms of creating subcontainers and folders to better organize this. So there's a lot of features here to better help with the data you brought through from Revit. So to get started, you just use your WASD keys to move around. It's always good to consider working to a view. So I'm using my E key to choose the height that I want to be at. If you want to use tools to actually navigate around with pedestrian mode, you can do that, and that will just put us on the ground. I prefer the drone mode. And if you need to know more about the tools, you can go full screen here, and there are other things you can adjust here for, say, speed. Speed, you can just use your numbers on the keyboard, and there's screenshots if you want to do that. If you've got VR tools, you can get into connecting it to VR. And then down the bottom here, you've got tools to show navigation or hide navigation. So down the bottom, these are some of your key tools for importing and linking files. You can bring in more files if you need to. So if you want to have geometry coming in from another data source, you could bring that in, landscape information and point clouds. What I like to do is try and set up some views that we're going to be working to. So we can create an image here for, say, a still, and maybe zoom back a little bit. And if we need to update it, you just hit that little refresh, and that will get us that view. And then there may be something else that might be of interest on this facade. So maybe something like this, and we'll just add another view. So by doing this, this just helps navigate around and keep you focused on the image you might want to create. Other things you can do here as well is you can set up animations. So very simply, an animation might be a panning animation. So I'll just go to here, grab the first frame, and then use the Q key to take us to the top view that we want to finish on. So maybe we want to finish on the rooftop. Just add another frame there, hit play. Now we have a simple animation. So even if you're just working with the Revit data and just want to get something out very quickly, that's how easy it is. I just use this principle because it just helps me navigate around the model and keeps me focused on the output that we want. So to get started, I'm just going to quit the media mode and we're going to start to look at materials. So the obvious thing here is the glass material is not looking quite right. So over here in the library, you have materials, vegetation, objects, lights, HDR environments. We'll start with materials, clear glass, green glass, two-sided glass. You can just drag and drop that onto the object and it will update. Glass, there is a new update of glass in the preview, which can do a little bit more, but typically if you're just working with the glass here, you can get some pretty instant results. Now, some materials may not have mapped across. Maybe I haven't done it in Revit. I can still use the materials in here to very quickly change and adjust it. So for this white part of the model, I could go to concrete. I tend to prefer concrete, but we can look at, say, different types of poured concrete, drag it onto that wall. And what you'll see here is by default, it scales in a different way. So we can just bring up our materials. If you need to find the materials that are in the model, you just click on materials here. So here's our pour concrete. You can rename it, change it. We just want to look at the scale. So at the moment it's at 1. We crank it up to 10. So I just type it on my keyboard. And you can see now we're getting more control of the scale. Maybe 30 might be of interest. If you use the slider, it just goes up to a default amount, but you can type in the amount to have better control. And you can rotate it as well. So maybe we want to rotate this 90. So very quickly, we can use the materials that are here. We can adjust the scale, the rotation, and we can also adjust the offset. So you can see here, we might want to have that panel, maybe the top junction of that panel, just going up to the parapet level there. So this can all be modified, and if we want to scale it in certain directions, we can do that as well. So there's a lot of flexibility within the materials to really get the offsets and the material sizes correct. Let me just do that again. So that was at 30 for the scale and rotated 90. So any material that you have in Revit, it will go across the whole project here. Now we look at the roof and the floor tiles. If you get lost in the tool, just select an object and hit F, and that will focus it. Whenever you're selecting these objects, it will also show up here as well. So if you need to zoom to the selection, you can do that, or you can just select it and hit F. Now with the materials here, if we look at, say, a different material, we have wood. And in the wood materials, there's a variety of options here. So you've got different ones for flooring, different ones for rough planks. So for an outdoor terrace, we could go and put rough planks on it. And again, when we get in, we can see the scale. So if I just crank that up to 30, we now have something maybe a little bit more interesting. And with a lot of these tools, you can start to look at things like roughness. I'll just zoom back a little bit so you can better see this. But the roughness, as you make adjustments, you can see if I turn the roughness off, it gives it a bit of a shine. So you kind of got like a bit of a Fresnel reflection there, or I can crank that up and make it a lot more matte. Typically, everything in life has a little bit of a shine to it, so it just makes it look a little bit more real. You can start to adjust the textures to make them more metallic. You can make them emissive. You can start to add masks if you want, and then there's a few more details about the miscellaneous setup of this. So this one is set up to work with the sound of wood, and that comes back to when you want to walk around the model. I believe that should be related there. So that's just a little feature there. And you can also see everything else that is associated with that same material has shown up here. So wood, and if we go to other materials, we can also use the mega scans. With the mega scans, make sure you're signed in. So sign into Epic Games. Mine's already defaulted there, but you just got to sign in. You can sign up for the Unreal Epic Games for free. And then here you're going to get access to 3D assets, plants, decals, and surfaces. So surfaces are basically your materials. And if I want to choose something that's kind of worn, these scans are scans of things in the real world. So asphalt, brick, tile. So tile, if we want to look for paved stone, there's all these different types of paved stones we can choose. And there's snow-covered paved stones, stone pavements, damaged stone tiles. So just to see the detail here, if we can get the damaged ones, you're just downloading those. So they're not going to be embedded in your program. It's when you download them, it will save it. I'll get maybe those ones there. And once they're done, then you just drag them on, and this will now create it on your roof. And then here we are with those damaged stone pavers. Again, they're available to be adjusted, so we can bring them up a little bit. These ones probably scale a little bit better on this model. And now we have these on the roof. If we go down a little bit lower, there's a lot of detail here. So I'd encourage you, if you are wanting to do more with mega scans to get more photorealistic, there's some great things in here that will really start to make your visualizations pop. Now, because these are going to form the slabs of the building, I'll just look at some of the ones we have here for concrete slabs. And I'll choose something very simple. And you can see there is a lot to choose from. So once you start working with these, you can also add your favorites. So you can just do a little love heart there, and then if you need to filter through your favorites, it will show up. So here, we'll do this one. And this one probably looks a little bit better for concrete. And again, I'm just going to adjust the scale. Back to favorites, let's try this one. Okay, so moving on from those sort of materials, so turn off the library, and I'll just grab something very simple to just replace that concrete, because a lot of it's maybe not quite right in the visuals. So, okay, so here we've got some materials. The last one to show here is the illumination material, and we could do this perhaps in one of the rooms. I have purposely taken the light fittings out of this model, but we'll just do it in here. So let's say we want maybe one of these units to be lit up, maybe under here, you can go to the materials and you can go down to your neons and you can add a neon material to this object, to this material, and it will illuminate. So if you had light fittings in here, you could use that to actually go to the bulb of the light fittings, and you can also crank up the luminosity as well. Now, if it's too bright, we want to make this a bit more subtle, we could drop that down. But this is just like a workflow to create illumination in your model. If you want to add light fittings manually, we can do that. So if I just go for just quickly adding a material here for a wood grain on those units, those floors, so something like that for now. If we want to add lighting manually in the model, we can go in here and add, say, a neon light. And that neon light, so maybe we put it in the back of the kitchen here. With that light, here it is selected. You can adjust the kelvins, so maybe 3200 or 2700 might make it a bit better for a kitchen. And then there's options to adjust different settings here. You could add an IES file and you can adjust the length. So that kitchen bench is maybe about 2 meters, and I can again focus and I can move this around to the kitchen as needed. And maybe this might be something a bit more interesting down the back there. So this is a very basic example of showing you how to do some lighting, and you can be very subtle with that lighting as well. So now we have something that might be illuminating the benchtop surface here inside of our Revit model. And there are numerous other lights here within the program, so a lot of different IES profiles here as well as omni lights and spotlights and area lights. Vegetation, we have landscapes which you can choose from. So if I choose like the rocky grasslands landscape and bring that in, that will go and add this type of environment. So a simple little background here, or you could just have it flat. There are some other workflows in order to create different backgrounds, which we can get into and control the lighting environment as well. For vegetation, we have trees. So here, if I want to have a tree out in the courtyard, I can choose some of the trees here that are built into the library, which have some smarts within them. However, if you want to, you can bring in your own library data here. And so there's a workflow to get that in and then put it into folders should you want to customize it. So out of the box trees, if we just get, say, a European mountain ash and place it here in our courtyard, what it has is a few smarts. So some of them, they come ready animated with wind. And here we can grab the center of that gizmo there just to make sure it's placed correctly. If I bring it up a little bit, you're just going to do that, and then that will hit the surface. We'll do some grass in here, and you'll see this sort of blend in a bit better. It does have some settings here to change on the months. So there's a few smarts. So winter trees, leaves are gone, autumn, summer, and auto. And of course, you can change a number of settings here. You can also change the age. So there's a lot of smarts in these trees that you bring in. And if you go back to ambience at the top of the selection tree here, when you select that ambience and then go down to the weather settings and change the weather, when we move into the winter months, you can see that tree will adjust as well. This one's set for snow, so that will start to adjust. So the trees in the library are pretty smart. However, you can bring in your own FBX, DAE, and OBJ files to put in your own user library. Next here in vegetation, there's numerous other things like detailed grass and flowers. Detailed grass is just, you know, blades of grass. So you can go and just bring them in there. And if I just say F, there you go. There's your grass. But these can be used in several ways to decorate or sculpt your landscape. So we can do some rocks if you want, and there's some scale of people behind them. What I do want to do here is look at adding a whole lot of grass, and I want to scatter it around the site here. So here, if we go to grass and flowers, we have different lawn types, getting right down into different, buttercups and poppies. We can go to here and populate and use the populate tool under the foliage to paint or scatter on the surface. So if I do the scattering here, this is a new topo solid as opposed to an old surface. So this may have mixed results, but we just go and get different types of long grass. So you want a bit of variety here, and maybe some clovers. We now have here the option to scatter. Now, it probably won't scatter on this solid. It will do it on an old surface. So I'm going to use the paint tool and the painting tool. Again, I'll just repeat that. So we'll get some wild grass, some clovers, and maybe we'll make it a bit more wild just for effect. This is like a paintbrush tool where you can paint on anything. So the diameter is probably a bit too much, so I'll just get it down to 3. And now 3, it's a bit more respectable. So I go on here and I can paint on that surface. So pretty simple, and you can see I've chosen the wild grass, so it's quite dramatic. If, for example, I want to just do it a bit more accurately, I can isolate that whole grass patch, and with it isolated back with the populate, and I'll just choose the ones that I had before. And it's always good to have a bit of variation, and maybe some sort of things a little bit odd there, just to give it a bit more context. Here I can just go and scatter all over that lawn, and you can sort of see it's not showing up in the background there, but when I zoom in a little bit, it actually reveals it. So there's kind of a nice little tool to not create all the information for you when you're viewing it. So here we are with our grass, and then if you need to tidy it up on the edges, you can go here and say 1, and I can just tidy up anything that's overrun on the edges. Now, if you do have a surface, you could use the surface tool. This is the new topo solid, hence why it's just sort of doing this in this way. Now, when we exit, so I want to turn off that isolate. Here we have our grass, and there's probably a little bit of cleanup to do. Now, anything that's not sort of showing quite right, I can go to materials, and you'll see that we do have ground, and you can just go to nature and choose a grass type. Now, you could choose something maybe like this, or you could just go and choose a dirt if you want to, but if I just go and drop that on there, that will just give it a bit more realism. I'd probably have a curb or something just to tidy this up a little bit as needed. In fact, because this is linked to Revit, back here in our site design, I do have a just a little curve here, so I can copy that across, and this is kind of just a way to allow that to sync back in. So just finish the command back to the 3D view, and because that should be auto syncing across, it has shown up there, but I just need to bring it up a little bit. So these are just little workflows to maybe tidy up anything that isn't quite right here. So that'll just be a little trick to tidy it up, and then I can sort of clean these edges. So there is vegetation with grass, trees, and a little bit of rock. Back to our library, we have objects. So there's a lot of things for objects. There's city objects, decals. So decals, might be things that you want to have for doing your city. So I'm just going to bring in a decal here, and this is where we're going to have our charging station for the electric car, as well as car parks, manholes, artwork. So if you want to put a Banksy or something on the wall, you can go and do that as well. So if you are building up stuff to be quite detailed, things like decals can really help promote the realism of your files. You can see there's a huge amount here to choose from. And you can bring in your own ones should you want to. Primitives are just basic objects. You've got particles, so if you want to get into fire, you can start to bring in fires here. If you've ever tried to use other tools like Phoenix with V-Ray, there's a bit more calculations to it, but you can start to set a fire if you want. And then for the water, you can set up water to objects. There's sounds, but we're just going to focus on furniture here. So we'll look at, say, this floor here. And again, what I'm going to do is maybe just do what I did at the beginning and set up a view that I'm interested in. So maybe this might be the one that I want to fit out. Maybe here is a little bit better. And I'll just refresh that. So we're just going to work to that view, but now we can go and bring in living room items here. So we want to bring in a sofa. We can do that. Maybe not the most beautiful sofa, but it's very easy to replace them. So maybe that's worse. Now, if you do need to bring in your own files, you can do that. I'll just have to stick with what we've got here in the application. Again, these are just FBX files, so you could bring in your own information and group and link and do all these sorts of things you might want to do to the sofa, to the furniture. Other things, electrical appliances, they're all here, but you can still bring in your own stuff. And if we want to, for the kitchen, for example, you can see the timbers gone a bit interesting. That's interesting. The materials are matching the grass here, so that could be quite cool. You can get right into the detail of the kitchen. So maybe that fridge isn't quite right. We can go and turn off that fridge, and we can go and load in one of these fridges. And let me just get on the floor, and then just type in 90 to rotate it. Sorry, 180. And we can place that in there. So this, again, may need to be a bit of adjustment. If it doesn't quite fit and you want to get it correct for that space, you've got the scaling tool, and with that scale, you can type in 0.9, and that may scale it a little bit better, or you can scale it up and all that. So these are just items that come with the product, and you can use that to quickly make your design look a little bit more realistic. Other things might be adding some decoration to the design. So there's all these different accessories you can choose from. They've got mega scans here as well, so you can start to have mega scans of food should you want to. And with all of these items, these can just go in the design and hit F, hit that, and F, you can see the detail in that. So object creation, if we step outside the building and we get into things like vehicles, there's numerous different vehicles you can choose from. So here we've got numerous cars. Of course, you can bring in your own type of vehicle should you want to. Again, just put them in the design, and with these you have colors to choose from. So I don't know. And there are some that come animated. So if we look at, say, a construction vehicle, some of these may show as being animated, ready to go. So if you're doing maybe a sequence of how this building is going to go together, maybe you want to show the client where the concrete truck is going to enter, and you can see I have no entry in the buildings here, but let's say we put that one in there. That has the barrel spinning for the cement, or we can have a little track loader, and you can move these things around. So they're already animated, and perhaps there's some logistical problems here. So some of these already come ready to go. Also, you can add animated components as well, and there's a few things we can do here. The last couple of things I just want to add is just some water. So you've got pool water here, and you can see as soon as you start to add that, it gives you a lot more realism. Now, what I want to do is just look at lighting and the environment to get this to pop a little more. So I'm just going to zoom back here a little bit, and I'm going to, again, just save that view. I'll just quit media mode for now, and just turn off media so we can see. So what I want to do, this is looking okay, but I want to make it look a lot sharper. So this is where you'll make the difference between a photorealistic image and, say, an image which is just standard like this. So you have environment, you have a camera setting here. By default, the camera will go to like a 90-degree field of view. If you change this, you'll find that it won't be as skewed, but you need to have the camera further away. But that's just something to be aware of. So having it at 90, it will create a skewed effect. Here again, just I like to refresh these views just so I've got that view saved. With the ambient selected, you can also do depth of field if you want to, and it can set up distances. Probably a little bit hard to see here, but it will blur things out. So things in the background, if you don't want them, you can do that, or you can pick the focus. We have other things you can do for effects, so vignetting. So you can sort of see that's a little bit subtle, but that will just give you a blackened edges around the camera, and then there's the parallelism, and that will actually adjust that skewed effect there. So I'm just going to leave it like that. And at the moment, my graphics card doesn't quite deal with path tracer at the moment, because you do need to load it onto the memory of the graphics card. So I'm just leaving it on real time, but we can still get some good results here. Some other things you'll notice here is the shadows. So there's the shadow bias, and this may affect just little junctions in the model. So you can make adjustments here to the shadow, so you can get that right down to 10 meters. By default, it's 400, but you can sort of see what's happening with the edge of that shadow there. And then there's just a little bit of a buffering thing here, there. So those are just other things to be aware of in terms of the quality of your image. And again, this just gets me back to the view I'm trying to work up. Now this has just got the default setting for time of day, so that will control where the shadow is going. Usually the sunset always looks pretty good. There's some exposure settings here. If you just typically leave it on 1, that usually on 0, that'll be fine for now. And I'll just leave this back on 12. There's a few more details around the exposure. You can have auto exposure if you want. This just means that when you're navigating through the model, it will adjust automatically. Typically an exposure, depending on how you've got this lit, you might crank that up to 4 or 2.2 for a gamma setting. As we go and change the time of the day, this may make a bit more sense in terms of the quality here. So just leave auto exposure on. You can get into a lot of different settings there, white balance, etc., etc. What I do want to do is use an HDRI to illuminate the scene. So there's all these things to adjust the settings to manually do this, but if you want to illuminate it with a real world environment, you can turn on the sky dome, and by default this is the sky dome intensity. So it defaults to 4, and it's just got this sky background and some details in behind it. So you can lock it to the sun, it can affect the lighting, it can affect the height. What I prefer to do is to use the backdrop HDRI, and this is the approaching sun HDRI, and you can see instantly that it's making the image pop a bit more. Now there may be a little bit of glitches here with the glass, but if you're using ray tracing, that will fix it up. Again, you can lock it to the sun, and you can get into some details here in terms of its height and positioning. So by default, it's 80 meters, but you can crank that up to 500 if you want. You can also adjust the height, so let's bring out the ground plane. And if I bring it up a little bit too high, it's going to sit within the model, but you can do that. So you've got a lot of control on this background. If I just go up a little bit, again, if I use the key, you can see now I've got a background here. So wherever I am in the model, it's going to be reflecting. You can see that on the windows. So here also, because the background, oh, that was something to note. Now, because I have this saved as a setting here, this means that it's going back to those default materials that I have. So before I save it, I just want to refresh that, and that will now save it to the scene. So if I go back to this one, it doesn't have any of those tools, but if I go back to this one, it does have those tools for the environment lighting. So a little tip just there. And so HDR lighting, if you want to do more with it, there's a number of environments here. And so if you click on the outdoor ones, you'll see there's numerous HDRIs. You could bring in your own ones should you want to. And once you do this, you'll have a lot more control over that environment. Make sure you download it before you bring it across. And because it's a lighting environment, that will affect your scene, and it will affect how the final visual is going to look. One tip is to sometimes make it overcast. That can make it look more real should you add an overcast scene. So I'm just adding some rooftop ruins, and the other one that was downloading was one with like a forest environment. And you'll see when I add this forest environment how it will impact the realism of your visual here. So just let that run. These are big files as well. They do have a lot of information in them, but they do help your visuals here. So you can see it's loading it in, and we should see something completely different here. All right. Now, if it is sort of doing this again, you can adjust the scale of it. See, there's the actual dome. You can actually see it a bit better here, and of course, you can go and type in, I don't know, 3. So maybe not perfect, but it still gives you more interest in terms of the reflections and the realism. You can see what it's doing to the glass there. So we'll just go back a few steps and just keep it as is for now. Finally, if you do need to make some adjustments here as well, you can go to the effects, and these have some tools to help with color gradients. So if you've ever done post-production in a Photoshop, Adobe-based environment, you'll find that these can help a little bit. So if I can use like a Fuji film effect, they're subtle, but they can just help with that final image output. And you've got other filters should you want to stylize it. So maybe you don't want to show the clients the colors. You can go and just show them this to have that basic look and feel. And if you want to get out of that, just go to none. There's even a clay render feature here as well. So different types of graphics. And then finally, this is just the output sizes, which will default to as well. So that's the full HD, but there are other ones here as well. And this comes down to if you've got a graphics card that will do path tracing, it will render it out, but it will render out to that resolution. Okay, last couple of things here is the characters. So you do have animated characters here, which you can choose from. So if you want to put someone in the design here, now they may not look as sharp when close up, but they can be reasonably effective from a distance. So this character here, animated, and with that person Donato selected, you can start to change the clothing color, the cloth color. You can have them talking, dancing, sitting, lying, and these are all rigged, ready to go. So it's very easy to use these animated characters. You can just use them posed. They could just be cutouts, and there's groups here as well. So enjoying the driveway and the weekend. And again, from a distance, they can look pretty convincing. It's just when you get up close, the quality, because it's all in real time, may not be as sharp. Now, let's say we want to customize an animation. So let's say we want to have a car coming in to the driveway here. So I'll just move the kids out the way. Dad can be dancing next to his new car. And we want someone to come in a vehicle. So down the bottom here, under populate, we have paths, and you can automatically do a vehicle path here. So I'll just go from point A to point B, and now we have a vehicle path, and with that vehicle path, we should have some cars coming here. Maybe it's not long enough. Let's crank up the density. There we go. So here we have a car speeding into the garage, but you can slow that down, and it follows the path, but it also follows the ground that it's set to. So if it's not quite right, we can just focus on that. I'll just spin around. and we can grab that node there, and get it to here. And now we have a basic animation of a car coming in. Now you probably do this more on a road. Let's say you want to control this a bit more and do a customized one. So I'll just delete that one. We have here within populate again. You can do this with bikes and characters. If we want to do a custom one, we can just do a path, but maybe it's going to be something customized that we want to go around the design. So there's our path, and it's actually followed by this little box, but maybe we want to customize what that is. So up here is your box, and here are all the different things you can choose from to animate around the site. So if you wanted to have I don't know, anything from here, one of these little construction vehicles, with that selected, you just drag that in, and now we have the construction vehicle. Now I want to make this a toy, so with that construction vehicle, I should be able to just scale it down. Maybe not for this particular one. So here we go. Okay, so the edits are only available to change the colors and the logo. And of course, this is US. You could go and bring in your own texture should you want. So that's just one quick workflow on how to customize. And I don't know why the truck's still there. So finally here, just back to this image to get this information out. And I wonder why that truck is still there. If you do need to search it, so we had a construction vehicle here. It was like a US dump truck. I should be able to choose that. No. Can't seem to find it in the scene, but it still seems to be there for some reason. Maybe when I close and restart it, it will clean out. So finally here, with this particular view, I want to create maybe an animation. So I'm just going to go to the video clip, create animation, and I'm going to go forward and up, just using the Q keys to go up, and panning down for the final shot here. So now I have my path, and I can play that. Again, you don't do too much. You want to keep this pretty slow and simple. And if you don't like the final shot here, we can always adjust it. So maybe I want to be out here. Just go here and hit refresh and hit play. And now it will bring us up to that final shot. Still with the mystery concrete truck, which I can't seem to select in the scene. Okay, so with that, with the export, this is the last tool. You can go here to hit video, and we want to add that video. So we can choose both of them or just one. I just want that one. And with it selected, should be ready to go. Deselect all, select. Okay. And now it just gives me options. So the MP4 will take it straight to an animation, but you could just do simple frames if you want to load it into After Effects or Premiere. Frame rate 30 frames per second is fine, and it will have some motion blur in here. You can adjust these. You can turn on max lighting if you want, and we can start that export. And what's fantastic about this is that it will do this really, really quickly. So instead of it running over hours to render out each frame, this will do it within a few minutes. So you can see here, it's only taking a few minutes. I'll just pause while it's finishing off. And now here we have the final video. And you can see the quality is looking a little bit better. There may be a few little overlaps there. That's probably more to do with me, with the way I did the Revit model. But the quality, the lighting comes across pretty sharp. And of course, you can develop this further in post-production tools like Adobe Premiere.